So the very first one is an honoring inscription going back to the 3rd century AD, erected for the honor of the chief priest of the Provincia Asia, which was one of the very important centers for the Roman expansion towards the eastern lands. Around 200s, that's the period of that is like when the decline of the Romans had began, without a doubt. And this inscription is for that. This one,
If I could just pause for a moment, fourth line here makes reference to the Asiarchane. The Asiarchs were the people that we mentioned earlier in Ephesus who intercepted Paul, who wanted to go into the theater to rescue Gaius and Aristarchus. This is a combination of two Greek words, Asia, of course, and then arche means ruler of Asia. And so this is the same, well, it's not the same people because we're in a different city, but it would be some of the rulers of Asia who had converted Christianity. They're described in Acts as being friends of Paul's, but rulers of Asia. So you see this title here. Also, I neglected, I apologize, but when we were in the theater at Miletus also, you're probably aware of this, over onto the right-hand side, not far from the God-fearer inscription, we also have another inscription of an Asiarch. Sorry.
no, you're more than welcome. So also over here, this is another inscription that is stating that Smyrna had been the Neakoros city, and let's sum it up. Provincia Asia was a very important zone in the Roman world because after the whole Europe was conquered till Germania lands, the expansion carried on to the eastern part, eastern direction. And the Provincia Asia, because of the connection, because of the easy connection, it was used as a very important expansion base. So, whoever was appointed to be an Asiarch was having very close relations with the Rome itself. In some further provinces of the Romans, you can come across with administratives, but they will not be as highly respected, and highly known as an Asiarch over here. So being an Asiarch was among the governors or among the high class rulers of the Roman lands, refers to the people at high ranks. And Paul was having friends among them. So that's also, it's not like knowing a local ruler, attached to Senate, appointed by the emperor himself, or appointed by some big power groups that was present in the Senate. And an Asiarch can never be an ordinary person. So that is also what I wanted to share with you. If Mark is not going to add something, then I can take you up.
Yeah, an abbreviation, the Kappa Lambda is for Claudius Aristophanes, and then the genitive form here, Aurelianos, son of Aurelianos. And then Neokoros, that's the term that we just quizzed you on in the bus. And then of the emperors, you notice that the emperors is genitive plural, so it's not just of an emperor, but of the emperors. Okay. Question?
Yeah,
Ron.
So Acts 19 would have been 52, 53, 54.
You mean when Paul was in
Yeah.
Ephesus, probably between the years 53, 55 AD. There's some wiggle room there.
So the fact that he's got friends in high places shows that Christianity was really spreading and influencing.
Well, he was 3 years at the end. You remember the riot takes place after 3 years. So he has spent 3 years in Ephesus evangelizing the city. And you've got wealthy people like Tyrannus family. And then you also have Asiarchs who have converted.
Would the Asiarchs be local to Ephesus or all around the region?
It depends. It's probably people who are stationed in Ephesus because Ephesus is so big. but there are also Asiarchs elsewhere in Asia. But they had ruling power over Asia.
For example, the letters of Pliny to Trojan. Pliny, after he was appointed as the governor of Bithynia, he traveled to Bithynia. So he wasn't a local Bithynian person. So from Rome, he was sent. It's very probable that not for all the Asiarchs, but for some of them, high administrative class members who had held uh, important offices of the state for the Romans might have been appointed
Wow.
to become the ruler over here. So they will be like, I mean, knowing the Secretary of Defense, for example, or knowing the a high state official in the United States as a regular citizen. Paul was nothing more than that, especially in the Provincia Asia. In the Tarsus, because his family had been quite active in trade, he must have having another social status there, most probably. But when you leave it and come here and speak against what the people used to believe for thousands of years, first of all, you will receive some criticism, and people, even though you might mean something to them, will not be embracing you immediately. They will approach you with some caution in a way. And after the silversmith Demetrius was right up to that point, there must have been for sure a tension against what he's doing. The Demetrius' right was the outburst of it. But
A piece of the graffiti that I wish we could have seen, you know how the cities compete with one another. One of the graffiti pieces says the Protos, that is the foremost or most important city of Asia, boasting, of course, that Smyrna is the foremost city of Asia. But then in a later hand, somebody writes in between the letters, Ephesio. In other words, Ephesus. In other words, you know how lots of times graffiti is kind of a give and take, kind of a competition. The original says the foremost city of Asia, and what is implied is that this is the foremost city of Asia. But evidently a visitor from Ephesus came in and took the initiative to write Ephesus in between the letters. It's kind of funny. Would this be a good place in the shadow here where we can read the letter to Smyrna? Or would we like to do it upstairs in the Agora?
upstairs will be sunny.
Here. I go here.
Okay.
City, outfit.
Okay. Does anyone else who's not read? I like to get people involved. Who would like to read? I've got it right here. Who would like to read the letter to Smyrna?
Let's have Alice there.
Anyone? Anyone? Then I will read it. No volunteers. Looking at Revelation chapter 2, verse 8. To the angel of the church in Smyrna, write, the first, the last, who is dead and who has come to life, says this. It's a reference to Jesus. I know your tribulation. Remember, each of these letters talks about Jesus' knowledge. Nothing can be hidden from Jesus Christ. He knows these churches and what they're dealing with. I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich. I mentioned this on the bus. Okay? Contrast this with Laodicea. Laodicea, there's nothing good that's mentioned about that church. Why? Because they've sold out. Remember, that's a commercial center. If you don't take the mark of the beast, you can neither buy nor sell. And of course, they didn't want their businesses or their livelihoods destroyed. And so we see the opposite here, where I know your tribulation and your poverty. Why are they experiencing poverty? It's because they have remained firm in their convictions and in their faith, their trust in Jesus Christ. There's no negatives that are associated with two churches, Philadelphia that we visited earlier and Smyrna. Okay? And so contrast that with Laodicea. So even though you're experiencing poverty, what Jesus is saying is, in fact, you are rich. They have built up treasure in heaven where neither moth nor rust can destroy. So I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich. And the blasphemy by those who say they are Jews and are not, they are a synagogue of Satan. Do not fear what you're about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to cast you into prison so that you will be tested, and you'll have tribulation for 10 days. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. We talked earlier today about what does it mean to overcome. It means willing to sacrifice your blood even to die. That's what this business of overcoming is all about. Remember the crown of life. Again, on the second floor of the Istanbul Archaeological Museum, we saw a beautiful gold leaf crown. That's what we're going to be given. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. And he who overcomes shall not be hurt by the second death. We have an eternity that awaits us, folks. We're going to die in this world, but we have a life in Christ in the days to come.